Hello everyone, welcome to, I guess you just call it a bit of a thought for Ash Wednesday. It's important to recognise that although we are not meeting together, and usually in our parishes we would be joining with even more churches and having an Ash Wednesday service together, but obviously that's not something we can do at the moment, and so I thought I would still just do a little bit of a meditation for Ash Wednesday, and like the service on Sunday was from St Mary's in Alveley, today it's St Andrew's in Quatt with lovely altar display behind me, and behind the camera is Anne and Sarah who are on the leadership of the church, so they've very kindly come in to do a bit of cleaning, and now they're acting as my audience, I guess, so thank you for doing that. So one of the things that always strikes me about this day is that we begin the season of Lent by remembering the end. It's not, however, just my ending. It's not a generic ending. It's your ending and my ending, the mark, the beginning of this new season. And we remember this day. And what's important to remember on this day is to remember that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. Those words are the hinge between a dusty beginning, like the book of Genesis says, then the Lord formed man from the dust of the ground, and a dusty ending. Think about the words that vicars and lay readers say at a funeral: ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We can talk about our beginning, where it happened, when it happened, who was there, but about our ending, when it will happen, where it will happen, and how it will happen, who will be there, to be honest, we just don't know. None of us do. We can't know, but I do know this: the reality of our ending is always before us. A couple of weeks ago, I was driving home from a hospital appointment when I was overcome by the thought that next year I'm going to be 44 years old, and that I'm much closer to my ending than I am to my beginning. It was one of those thoughts that got a hold of me and wouldn't let go. 2 days later, I had a dream, and I was at the annual meeting for Hereford Diocese, and I was looking at the agenda for the meeting, and there was only one item on the agenda, and it said it's the Neil Dunlop Memorial Service. Something in me was saying, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. From the day we are born, there is a presence that accompanies us. It's our constant companion, invisible and yet ever present. Regardless of who we are or where we go, it goes with us. This companion, this presence, is sadly named death. And today we mark ourselves, or we would, with ashes of mortality, a visible sign of an invisible companion. It would be a mistake, however, to think that death only comes at the end of our physical life. Death meets us all along the road of life through various guises. It's in those moments when we experience the fragility and uncertainty of life. At some level, all fear is rooted in the fear of death. Death makes itself known in broken relationships, in failures, in shattered dreams, and also in lost opportunities. Death often dresses itself in our regrets and our disappointments. We recognise death's presence in those times when we betray ourselves and live contrary to who we truly are or who we truly want to be. If you've ever known grief, then you've gazed into the face of death. Each funeral we attend, especially when it's for someone your age or younger, reminds us that everyone dies and that we too one day will die. I wonder if the spectre of death is why some people stop celebrating birthdays. We can try to forget and ignore and deny death, but no one escapes a final ending. But here's my question. What if escaping death is not the issue before us? Sometimes I wonder if we've actually not only missed the point of Lent, but maybe even missed the point of the gospel. Maybe Lent and the gospel of Jesus are not primarily about being good, a program for changing a bad person to a good person so we can get a future reward. And I've got nothing against being a good person, you understand, whatever that might mean. But I've never read where Jesus said, "I came that you might be good, better, and an improved version of yourself." What I've read is that Jesus said, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." It's in John's Gospel. Throughout the Gospel, he shows himself to be giving life, revealing life, and calling to life. And that's not about tomorrow, after you die, or some heavenly future. Now is the day of salvation, Paul tells us in the second letter to the Corinthians. Now, in this time, in this place, life is now. And yet, how many of us grew up with the promise and hope of life after death and living forever? I know I did. It's what I wanted, and sometimes I still do. For many of us, life after death was, and maybe still is, the central focus and purpose of faith, Jesus, and also the church. But the older I get and the more I experience, the more urgent life before death becomes. Is there life in my marriage, in my parenting, in my priesthood, in my friendships? Is there life in the way I'm living at this moment? Is there life in the way I see the world, and also is there life in the way I relate to others? Am I growing? Am I bringing life to others? Is there life in me even as I stand before death? And if there's not, then why not? What needs to change, to be let go of, to be done differently? Those aren't just questions for me, they're questions for all of us. What if life before death is really what Lent is about? What if life before death is really what the ashes of mortality are pointing us to? What does life before death mean for you and offer you? Yes, life is defined, limited, and bound by death, but it is not nullified by death. Death is not a diminishment or negation of life, but its intensification. Mortality is what gives life its vitality. Think about it like this. Death is the frame around the picture of our life. It holds us and what it is before what it is. It focuses our attention. It intensifies and prioritizes what really matters. That this life does not last forever, does not diminish life's value. It actually gives it value. The momentary, temporary nature of life means that this one moment, this now, is actually priceless. There will never be another moment like this again. And that's really important to remember, even in our times of trouble and darkness. The question behind today's ashes is not whether you will die, what you will give up or do for Lent, or how to improve yourself. The question is about your life before death. What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to live it? Do you have life before death? The poet Mary Oliver captures this beautifully in her poem When Death Comes. And she writes, "When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I made my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." Amen.